This Civic Media podcast is sponsored by UW Organ and Tissue Donation. Organ donations are desperately needed, and now is the right time to become an organ donor. Talk to your family. Get the dot. Save lives. Go to heroicdeed.com.
And good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. I am Chad Holmes. This week it's a little bit different because we are in the mix here between the end of fall sports and the start of winter sports. And starting next Tuesday night, we have our first high school girls basketball broadcast with Marathon and Loyal. We'll also have girls basketball next week with Newman Catholic and Wausau West. Newman against Assumption on Thursday, West against Neenah on Friday. But what it means is, starting next week, I become very busy. And from November until mid-March, pretty much every night, have some high school sports. And because of that, I decided to take this week off. And I'm on vacation. In fact, we are actually recording the entirety of this program here tonight. And coming up, we're going to hear some of the previous conversations that we had with area student athletes during the fall football season. So go back, listen to some of our conversations, learn a bit more about our student athletes that we've had during the first 12 weeks of our Big High School Sports show for this season. But here in the first segment, we're going to talk about the playoff action from last week and the semifinals this week in high school football. And very happy to spend a few minutes with Newman Catholic High School head football coach Paul Michlig to do that. And Coach, again, you've been in this seat for these coaches and these teams going into state semifinals, and in fact in 8-player, the state championship game coming up in Wisconsin Rapids on Saturday. But a very exciting time of the year.
Yeah, anytime you get to this point of the season and you're still playing, you don't take those situations for granted, and everything kind of gets heightened up a lot more every week you go on, and there's nothing like it to have the opportunity to either go to state and then be in the 8-man to win a state title.
Let's talk about what happened in what they're calling now regional finals or sectional finals. A little bit different, not level 3 anymore, but sectional finals. In Division 1, DC Everest for the third straight week went on the road. And last Friday, they defeated Waunakee 31-21, a game that was played in Waunakee, and obviously Waunakee, the number 1 seed. DC Everest was able to do it with the pass. They were able to do it with the run. They made big plays when they had to, and also the defense came up with a couple of big stops. When Waunakee was pushing towards a potential tying touchdown, they got it down to the 2-yard line. DC Everest got a stop, and then after a Waunakee stop, Waunakee started a drive deep in DC Everest territory. Again, Evergreen's got a stop, and they were able to get a late field goal to get the 10-point win. But offensively, we've seen them so strong recently, but I thought it was actually the defense that really was able to help push them over the top in that game. And when you get this deep, you have to have more than just a great offense, but also get those defensive stops when needed.
Yeah, Waunakee is probably kicking themselves a little bit. They had first and goal from the 2-yard line, and they ended up not scoring off that to tie it up 28-28, and they came up with a big stop, DC Everest. And then actually even later in the game, they got good field position, and they couldn't capitalize on a 4th and 3, I think it was. And they had those 2 opportunities to make it 28-28. And so you're right, the defense stepped up and made plays.
So DC Everest now one step away from making it to Camp Randall Stadium and the Division I state championship game, but it won't be easy because they face a perennial power, Bayport. Bayport, a number 2 seed in their part of the bracket. They defeated number 1 seed Milwaukee Marquette, the defending state champs in Division I. Bayport went over to Marquette and won 35-21. And again, Bayport is a perennial power. They did have a couple of stub toes this season, but something you had said, they play. teams. They play some really good football teams, and what they were able to do at Marquette was very impressive. It'll be a difficult test for DC Everest at UW Oshkosh on Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at their schedule and kind of their offense, defense, they've stayed relatively healthy. They got a good quarterback. Throwing the percentage was 66% completion, which is really good. It doesn't throw many interceptions. They have a running back that's really good. They got a couple other pieces. They got a couple good receivers. So they're really balanced offensively, defensively. But, if you look at their schedule, the two games that they had against the top teams, they actually lost to. If you Kimberly and West Appear, they did beat some playoff teams. But if you look at their schedule, their two toughest games was Kimberly and West Appear, and they lost both of them. So last night's win against Marquette was the first time that they beat a team that was ranked. And if you look at rankings, Everest went and has done. They beat the Madison team last week, and then they beat Wanakee this week. So, but I will say, it's not quite as it's the Fox Valley area, but I don't think it's
not
that Fox.
It's not the FBA.
It is not the FVA. Correct.
FFA. FVA, yeah, Fox Valley Association. I still think of that. The Valley Football Association was for a number of years. The mind is all screwed up with
that. It's the Fox Valley Association.
They're in the Fox River Classic.
Yep.
So again, you're exactly right. But again, they've been a perennial power that's made it deep into the postseason. And for DC Everest and Bayport, for DC Everest, I would think, again, number one, you have to be able to use the incredible talent they have offensively. I mean, Logan George, at quarterback, outstanding 2-year starter. You got Blake Bankston, who's just been incredible, more than 2,000 yards rushing this season. And then Xavier Edwards made a couple of plays in that game that were just vital. I mean, there have been times where he's been a big focus on the offense. There have been other nights where they just kind of run the ball a lot, has not been as big of a focus, but boy, he is just such a handful. And I would think as you get deeper and deeper, you have to have each of those aspects of your offense be clicking in order to win.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at stats wise, I think that offensively, Everest is better than them. If you just look at straight stats and with the running back, the quarterback, the receiver, those three guys, playmakers win games, and they have playmakers offensively, and that's what puts them in a great situation. And their defense has done enough, and I don't think they're playing a Bayport defense that is dominant. They're okay, they're good, they're solid. Obviously, you get to this level, but it's not like they're dominant. And you're looking at paper and you're looking at numbers. This is a game that they definitely, if this is the state semifinal, the number one team I think is out. The number two team is out. If you go by rankings, I think only Muskego is in the top four that's left. So that's pretty impressive because Everest wasn't in the rankings, Bayport wasn't in the rankings. So and McGuanago was not in the rankings.
McGuanago is actually the team that's still in it. They were number.
Oh, McGuanago was not Muskego.
They were number. Muskego was actually, and then Muskego is always a terrific.
Yes.
You're used to seeing them, but they're actually a number 4 seed, and they found a way. Actually, real quickly, the other semifinal is McGuanago and Muskego. That Muskego, after Nina had, they beat Kimberly, and it's like probably a celebration for a week, and then they were at home this past weekend, and they were beaten, and so McGuanago, obviously they've done it all season long, but Muskego is right now on a roll as a number 4 seed,
and they've done it over the years of always being up there. Both those teams, it's not like those programs are not used to being up there, but the one, like I said, so you only really got one ranked team in there, correct? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So it's
wide open is what my point is.
It is wide open. That's exactly right. Real quickly, looking at D2, we have not had area teams involved in D2 in a while since Marshfield lost in the first round. But last week it was in the level 3. I'm going to call it level 3 yet. All these changes always throw me for a loop. But Rice Lake beat New Richmond 28-6. New Richmond had been undefeated. They had won the Big Rivers Conference. They had beaten Rice Lake during the season. But again, sometimes that pedigree at this level, that does matter, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just, if you do, and I'm going to go off of that thing, it's actually right that they actually changed it to sectional final, because for all the other sports, 4 teams make it to state.
Yes, you're right.
So we're shortchanging football for a long time. So again, I'm not trying to promote anything, but
no.
It actually, they did it right.
Yes, you're right. You're exactly.
And when they say they did something right, I want to make sure I reward them.
You're exactly right. So Rice Lake will take on West De Pere, who beat Kaukauna, number 1 seed. West De Pere, as you mentioned, that they had beat Bayport during the regular season, won the Fox River Classic Conference championship, and they beat Kaukauna 20-14. So West De Pere takes on Rice Lake, and what should be a very entertaining game here in Central Wisconsin. In fact, at Marshfield on Friday night.
Think about that quick. Those two teams, Division 2, and they both beat the semifinals of the D1.
What does that say to you?
I don't know. What does that say to me?
Does it mean we have too many divisions? Maybe we could close it up a little bit?
No. I'm just saying that's how good football. Like sometimes people like Division 1 is the top notch.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
But in this case,
it would be easier if you were a D2, because sometimes you see it. Oh, you're just near the line for one division or another. Sometimes the lower division is actually a much tougher bracket than if you were in the higher division.
Correct.
Right?
So, and we've talked about sometimes it's what bracket you get in, and I think that's proof of it, because one of those teams, Bayport or Everest, are going to be in the state finals, and one of those teams, West De Pere or
Rice
Lake, will not be. And just think about that. They beat both of those teams.
Exactly. Slinger and Badger in the other D2 semifinal on Friday night as well. Looking at Division 3, Medford, they fell to La Crosse Logan in a thriller in Medford last week by a score of 51-48. Logan number 3 seed, Medford number 1. Medford had another terrific season, but they seem to have that wall. I know they want to pound through that wall, just get a little bit deeper, but it seems as though those teams from the western part of the state just have that little bit of an edge over the GNC. Or maybe a bigger edge.
Well, no, I think you're right. I mean,
the best teams of the GNC.
Medford had it. I mean, the kid makes a heck of a throw at the end to win that game, and that's a team that East played, correct? And that game got shortened.
Yes, and very good team.
And very good team. And so it wasn't like they were playing against somebody that wasn't very, very good.
Logan beat Onalaska 42-6 last week, and Onalaska handed Medford their only loss. So actually, looking at those results, it was like,
surprised it was that close.
And Medford was able to have that chance right at the end,
and then bring them all the way up here from the lacrosse. And Medford does have a good program. They're doing the real thing up there.
And Notre Dame Academy will take on Logan in a state semifinal at Wisconsin Rapids Lincoln on Friday night. The other D3 semifinal, Wisconsin Lutheran against Catholic Memorial. Again,
did you see that ending?
I did not see that.
They were trying to down it, Mount Horeb, and they fumbled the snap up with a minute 46 left. And they literally took, because the guy didn't kneel then, because the ball was up in the air.
Right.
They took the ball out of the guy's hand and got the ball back. And they scored.
So
it was 14-10. Mount Horeb was up 14-10, and the ball just went straight up in the air, and he had to hold it, and they literally and he couldn't kneel. They took it out of his hands. Talk about not losing sleep on that one.
I know, unbelievable. The Division 4 semifinals will be Baldwin Woodsville against Winneconne. Baldwin Woodsville, a number 2 seed, defeated number 1 seeded Freedom 48-35, and Winneconne, a number 1 seed, defeated number 2 seeded Mayville 20-10. Other semifinal in D4 has Racine St. Catherine's, who defeated number 2 seeded Lake Mills 19-14, taking on Aquinas, who is a number 1 seed. They edged Columbus 29-28. Any thoughts on those 4 teams and those 2 matchups?
Well, say the 4 teams again.
Baldwin Woodville will take on
perennial powerhouse, and Winneconne has been very good the last 5-6 years. And the other side you said was
Racine St. Cat's against Aquinas.
And Aquinas has won some big games so far this year, and they play with schools that are a little bigger than them usually. And so Racine St. Cat's is going to have their handful against Aquinas, I believe.
3 number 1 seeds and a number 2. So basically in that bracket, a lot of number 1s through. Also the same in Division 5, 3 number 1 seeds and a number 2. You have Northwestern, who defeated number 1 seed St. Croix Falls, who had just edged Whitburn last week. Northwestern 20-8. They will take on Wrightstown, who edged number 2 seeded Kiel 21-20. So Wrightstown and Northwestern will play in Rhinelander on Friday. And then Prairie du Chien number 1 seed, rolled over Milwaukee Academy of Science 39-0, and they will take on Stratford. The Stratford Tigers, who again defeated Lake Country Lutheran 34-11 to stay undefeated and earn a spot in Wisconsin Dells on Friday against Prairie du Chien. And you talk about a couple of teams that look like powerhouses. That looks like it could be a really fantastic matchup between two incredibly good teams. And in fact, number 1 and number 3 in the state rankings at the end of the regular season, which are for entertainment purposes only.
Entertainment purposes only.
But now it's not for entertainment purposes only on Friday.
I will say about Prairie du Chien, I mean, I think, what was it, 130-0 so far, 3 games
in the playoffs. Yeah.
And their only loss came in week 1 against Aquinas, 14-12. So Prairie du Chien obviously is a very good team. Stratford obviously is a very good team. They're number 1 ranked in the state. My guess would be that whoever wins that game is going to win the state title. Now, with that being said, Wrightstown, another school that's perennial powerhouse down in that Fox Valley area. They play good football down there, and they've been around the block many a times. So I could see Wrightstown obviously being in there also against whoever wins that Prairie du Chien Stratford. But I will say that I would. My guess would be for both teams, this will be their toughest game that they've seen so far.
Absolutely. And the thing about Stratford now that maybe they've developed the last few years that's really helped them in this. They had their great run, and then they kind of were still very good, but now they're having another almost historic run. It's hard to believe how successful they've been. Their pass game is so much better now with Jack Tubbs, who's had such a fantastic season. I imagine against the defense that they're going to face on Friday, that's going to be a key to be able to both run and pass. In fact, I think maybe their pass game is a little bit stronger than their run game this year.
Yeah, they can do both very well, and Tubbs can do both himself. He's made some big runs during the course of the season, but then he's also made some amazing passes. So when you have that dual threat at the quarterback position, and then their defense is always solid every year for the last, I don't know, since the beginning of time, it seems like Stratford has good defense. They have tremendous athletes, athletic, and can play downhill and make sure they make plays on that side. Prairie du Chien is again, they did see Aquinas, which I would say is similar probably to Stratford, but that was week 1, and both of those teams are going to be running into the best opponent they faced.
Division 6 semifinals will have Grantsburg, who defeated Regis by a score of 31-8. They will take on Bonduel, who got past Coleman 15-13. And man, I mean, I'm not shocked in that respect because Bonduel is a very good program, and Coleman had their hands full against Abbotsford the previous week where they were outgained by about 100 yards. But Bonduel, very, very impressive for them to get to this point. The game will be played at Stanley Boyd on Friday. And then the other semifinal, Bellevue, a number 8 seed, has made it to a state semifinal. They beat the number 2 Lancaster 20-7. Bellevue has beaten the number 1 seed, the number 4 seed, and the number 3 seed. I should say the number 2 seed to get to this point. And Bellevue will take on Lomira, who knocked off number 1 seed Cedar Grove, Belgium, 24-7. But Bonduel is a solid football program from the east central part of the state, and good for them. And I think again, to see a number 8 seed make it this far is it's something else.
Yeah, I mean, looking at some of the games that they played, have been, I mean, they've lost 35-7, 38-7 earlier in the year against teams that are not that much bigger than them. And most of these teams, we have not mentioned their name yet that they lost to, and they lost to Waiwega Fremont the first game of the year.
Wow.
But definitely you find the right situation, and you find the right, and you have talent. They obviously have talent. They would not be here if they did not have talent. They obviously have felt it. Maybe they had a couple injuries here and there, and suddenly hear about it being
about
boom.
Good matchups. I mean, what you do well, maybe another team doesn't do well. Exactly. So much of it in so many sports is about that bracket. Do you have that bracket that opens up for you, and do you take advantage at the same time? And they obviously are. And then finally, Division 7. You got Boyceville, number 2 seed. They won at number 1 seed Spring Valley, 21-6. They will take on Edgar. Edgar Wildcats defeated Lord's Academy 29-6, and they will play in Chippewa Falls on Friday. In the other state semifinal in D7, Potosi Cassville, number 3 seed. They had defeated number 5 River Ridge 21-14, and they will face Kenosha St. Joseph Catholic, who defeated Johnson Creek 42-0. But I guess with here in Central Wisconsin, the Edgar Wildcats right back in a state semifinal.
Yeah, it's kind of like 3 guarantees in life, taxes, death, and Edgar will be making a deep run in the playoffs.
Well,
so
last week I had Jerry Sins on because I always save him for late in the season because you kind of assume Edgar's going to be playing.
Yeah, I was wondering why you had me on week 1, but no, kidding. But they do those things, and they do very good. I don't believe they're as good as they were last year. And I'm sure they probably would say that too. But they do things right all the time. I did think that Oshkosh Lords, they're missing quite a few of their weapons last night. And there was some, and they put pressure on that quarterback because he was the real deal. There's a couple plays where they had big gains and they got penalties called back, or the play didn't start one time. It was 15-6 late in that third quarter. I thought Lords competed with them real well. Boyceville, again, they won after losing. Their only loss is to Spring Valley. So they beat Spring Valley last night 21-6, where they lost to them 19-8 earlier in the year. And maybe this is me, more of a Central Wisconsin guy, but I think Edgar plays a better schedule than they're kind of in that south-west area kind of area, south-north. They play some of those teams. I know Spring Valley's to the south. But they play Clear Lake and Unity and those teams and Colfax. I think they're going to have Edgar, I think, does sneak out on that one. I think, and they go to the championship game. Kenosha St. Joe's, I think they're the real deal down below, and I think I would expect to see Edgar and Kenosha in the championship.
And then coming up this Saturday is the 8-player state championship game, semifinals this past week, and a very tight game at Stanley Boyd. Owen Withey was able to hold off Highland 23-21 to advance to the final, and they'll take on Lena St. Thomas Aquinas, who rolled past Northwood Salon Springs by a score of 38-14. So Lena St. Thomas Aquinas and Owen Withey will be going for the 8-player championship in Wisconsin Rapids on Saturday afternoon at 1 p.m. I guess we'll start with the Owen Withey Highland game. We had a chance to see Owen Withey in person in the week before and saw them on the stream this past week. That was up and down, but they needed to make the plays to hold on to the football for a long time at the end. They were able to do it.
10-16 was their last
craziness,
drive.
Huh?
And the thing is, in a situation like that, you gotta sell out somehow if you're gonna try to slow them down, because they were getting 5 yards a pop without even trying. You gotta sell out, and you gotta put that extra guy in the box, or you gotta put everybody in the box to make sure that you gotta get that stop, because it's kind of like is it Novocaine, they always say, that offense is might not work right away, but it's going to keep coming. It's going to come, and then they're going to numb you, and it's going to keep numbing, and they're going to keep getting 5-6 yards. It's impressive what they do, and they do it so well, and they're well coached both offensively and defensively. And Highland is also. And quite frankly, if it was me just looking at it, I'm not in it, so I don't have to worry about it. But that game probably was the championship game last night.
Yeah, I think way Owen Withey has gone this season, and you're exactly right in way Highland played as well. But the puncher's chance, I guess, for Lena. That's about it.
Of course, I mean, because Northwoods beat a real good Clayton team the week before to get there, and Lena dominated them. Northwoods has one real stud player, probably the best player in 8-man, and or one of them, and he just couldn't get going last night, and that's what happens when you can't get anything going. But Lena has I'm happy for them. They've always come through there. But I'll say it is, Owen Withey has had to go through Highland, Chippewa Falls, the only 2 other teams that were number 1 all year. Yeah. They just beat the other 2 number 1s all year.
I'm gonna throw a little curve here. On the Saturday morning, they announced the brackets. Gilman was in there. If they would have stayed in there, would they be playing on Saturday?
Well, I mean,
because they were played.
They would have played Owen Withy last night.
No, weren't they? They were
yeah,
over in the Clayton side. They were on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think so too.
I really.
It's unfortunate because, I mean, there were actually this year more than 16 teams. I don't know if there were 32 teams that were really playoff. I hate using the term playoff worthy, but at the very least, there were at least 17. And unfortunately for A players, there's only 16 teams in the postseason compared to 32, where there are a number, I would say, I hate using that term, but right now, there used to be a higher percentage of teams that miss the playoffs in 11 player that we don't see anymore.
Correct.
It goes much deeper.
But you know what, though? I mean, we can look back and say, Belleville, look at Belleville.
Yeah. You're right. No, you're exactly right.
So I guess there is an example.
I guess so.
There is an example.
Make me look like an idiot there.
No, that's the only time I could probably. I mean, to be honest with you. So, and I didn't even know that, to be quite frank with you, that they had a losing record going into it. So I think
it is what it is, but it's just interesting because, again, I think that, a very thin line that kind of changes what we're going to see on Saturday.
If I was a betting man, when I first saw it come out, I would have said that Gilman has a good shot of getting there. When it first came out that morning.
Because of the way the brackets fall. Again.
Because of where the brackets fall.
You know, you said it all the time. I mean, Owen Withy was – because you know Owen Withy's brackets. You were right there, and you saw the tough teams in that bracket, so very, very much so. But there we have it. Again, very exciting times and a lot going on. And again, we encourage folks who have an opportunity, if you have a chance to see a game. I mean, it's high-level stuff when we get to this point of the season. Yeah,
they're high school football. And again, when I'm not saying when Lena doesn't have a shot, I'm just saying that Highland was the number one ranked team in the state because I think Lena is a very good team and very well coached. And my point being is all these games, you can't sit there and go, this is what's fun is you can't guarantee that you're going to win any of these games, any of these teams. And that's what makes this fun. That's what makes high school athletics fun because you don't know who's going to win at this point. And for their communities, it's a great opportunity. So go out and watch a game.
Thank you for helping break it down.
Oh, it was awesome, Chad, and you keep enjoying your vacation.
Absolutely. We're going to come back, and you want to hear a little bit more about where high school football is. About a couple of weeks ago, I was invited as a guest on the Busted Pencils podcast from Civic Media, and it's a program that looks at public education in Wisconsin, and sometimes they talk a little bit about sports. And in fact, we had a chance to talk a bit about sports on the podcast, and the people that were part of it really weren't as familiar with why teams go to 8-player, why teams are where they are in terms of participation. So we had a kind of an interesting discussion, and I'm going to play that back, and you'll be able to hear the responses I had to the questions from the Busted Pencils people on that podcast. So we're going to have that, and then after that, we will have a number of our previous student-athlete interviews as we kind of take a deep breath here at this point of the high school sports season and take a deep breath and get ready for the start of, again, winter high school sports next week. As I said, I had to take off this week because Tuesday night we got Marathon and Loyal and girls basketball to tip off our season. Then Thursday night, Newman and Assumption conference action right off the bat as well. And then Friday night, Wausau West girls will open up their season against Neenah, and always a good girls basketball program. So we're excited to get into winter sports, and so I'm going to be fully charged for a busy winter of high school play-by-play here on Wausau's only radio station that still provides live play-by-play. The folks down the street decided they didn't want to do it. So I know that some people don't like me when I say that, when I point out the facts. Facts. I learned it from Michlig. Facts. But we're looking forward again to an outstanding winter of high school sports play-by-play. Again, the Big High School Sports Show is brought to you by K5 Construction, a family-owned and operated custom builder in central Wisconsin that stands out from the rest for its commitment to quality and excellence. From design and planning to the final construction, K5 Construction delivers superior results on every project. More to come as we continue here on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCOFM.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Local radio thrives when it serves the community. WXCO is no different, and we're looking to add someone to our staff that is well connected around town. Someone who can help our local businesses increase traffic and their visibility among our audience. From connecting clients with high school sports, local news and weather, or the Chad Holmes Show. If you know local business owners, we'd like to get to know you. If you'd like to know more about this opportunity, send me, Chad Holmes, a message at chad.holmes@civicmedia.us. That's chad.holmes@civicmedia.us. And let's set up a time to talk.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck yes, that'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Wisconsin, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
And welcome back, Big High School Sports Show, 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Again, the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction. I am Chad Holmes again. A little bit of a different show here this evening because I'm on vacation. It's the only week I can get away during the course of the high school sports season, really. And the week between for us here on WXCO, where we don't have any high school sports broadcasts. And then starting up next Tuesday, we have our first high school girls basketball broadcast. We'll be featuring the Marathon Red Raiders in the opener next Tuesday night, as the Marathon girls will try to get off to a good start this season on the road, as Marathon will be traveling to Loyal. And then on Thursday night, we'll have the Assumption Royals at Newman Catholic. The Fighting Cardinals will tip off their season next Thursday. And then a week from Friday, our first Wausau West girls basketball broadcast will be featuring the Warriors against the Neenah Rockets. So next week, high school girls basketball will be on the forefront as that season gets underway. And then the following Tuesday, on November the 26th, we'll have our first hockey broadcast with the Central Wisconsin Storm, the defending state champions, taking on Wisconsin Valley Union. And then the following weekend, after the end of the holiday celebration, Thanksgiving weekend, we'll have both high school boys hockey and high school boys basketball. We'll have the Wausau West Warriors over at the season opening event at Eau Claire to start things off. And then we'll also be over on Saturday of that weekend at Wausau West High School for the annual turkey shoot, where the Wausau West Warrior and Newman Catholic boys basketball teams will be in action. So again, I'm taking advantage of this final week before we go knee-deep into a very, very busy winter sports season starting next week. And next week, we'll also be back starting to look at some winter sports. We'll be talking about girls basketball, actually some results next Wednesday, and Jeff Gress will be with me for the first time this season as well. So again, we'll be with you all through the winter sports season, 6 till 8 p.m. every Wednesday right here for the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction here on 98.9 WXCO. Also, we're going to be here for the rest of the show having some interviews. We're going to go back to 4 interviews with student athletes we've had this fall coming up later on in the program. But here in this segment, I had an opportunity to appear as a guest on the Civic Media featured podcast, Busted Pencils. Busted Pencils focuses on public education in Wisconsin, and they always talk a little bit of sports as well. And I was the guest at the start of the playoffs in high school football a couple of weeks back, talking about generally about high school sports, high school football, and quite a bit about 8-player football. So I thought we would share this, as we have not heard this on the airwaves here on WXCO, but I was on Busted Pencils. So here's that conversation concerning a lot of the issues involved in high school football.
We got a great guest. WXCO and Wausau, one of Civic Media stations. Chad Holmes, the play-by-play, sports, you name it, everything going on. Chad, welcome to Busted Pencils. How are you, our friend?
Terrific. Great to be on the program.
Well, we are absolutely excited to have you on here because we say this segment here, you know, we started it from the standpoint of, well, with your colleague, Jimmy Kuska, the idea of talking about what goes on, particularly at the we say extracurriculars on this one too. Fall, Friday nights, lots of sports, as Johnny's pointing out. Well, Friday night football, we know in Wisconsin, we actually know all over this country, Friday night lights, Friday night football is a huge deal when it comes to public schools. You've been seeing a lot going on out there in Wisconsin. We want to chat what's going on, what's happening, and then also kind of want to get to the whole idea of participation in fall sports, fall extracurriculars. I know particularly I'm kind of troubled by the fact, Chad, that you sent us in a note letting us know that actually some schools don't have enough students to make a football roster. So the old 11 is being cut down to like 8. We're going to get to that not right away. But Chad, what's going on Friday night football in Wisconsin?
Well, it is night number 1 of the playoffs. We've had 9 weeks of regular season action, and in the state of Wisconsin, if you're a team that has a conference record of at least 500, you're automatically in. But also because of the issues with some teams moving from 11 to 8, we're seeing actually a lot more teams that go 3 and 4 in their conferences make the playoffs. In fact, roughly 90% of the teams that go 3 and 4 make make the playoffs as well after going below 500 in the conference. So basically almost 75% of the teams now make it to the playoffs. And for football, it's a little different. Most of the other sports, and right now we have volleyball that's just getting underway with playoffs as well. Everybody gets in the playoffs, but football has always been a little bit different in terms of qualifying for the postseason. And we're seeing more teams actually make the playoffs. And that kind of leads to week 1 sometimes having a number of games that can be a little bit lopsided. And that's one of the issues for this week.
Well, you're talking about that many people making it. I got to take the kind of jab for this. So what are you saying? So Friday night football, everybody gets a participation trophy?
I wouldn't go that far. I think that no, actually, the teams that actually make it deep do earn it. But at the same time, I do think there's going to have to be a little bit of a reevaluation in terms of the number of divisions in high school football. We have 7 divisions right now, and 32 teams make the playoffs in each of the 7 divisions. With some of the teams leaving 11-player, going to 8-player, perhaps you have to think about maybe going to 6 divisions and thinking of the 8-player division as that 7th division. So I do think that there's going to have to be some reevaluation, but I think that something that's very rare when it comes to high school sports is it's very rare to cut down divisions once you've raised them up. I've been bit of a voice in the wilderness over the last number of years. We've seen back in the day we would have 4 basketball divisions. Now we have 5 basketball divisions. We've gone to multiple divisions, added divisions in volleyball. We've had added divisions in softball. I don't think that's for the best in terms of the competition. I understand the idea of wanting some of the small schools to be able to compete at a certain level, but at the same time, when you get to a certain level of the postseason, you want those teams to put on a good show, to have the best teams out there. So I think it's a bit of a balancing act, but I do think right now we may have to be at the point where you have to kind of reevaluate the number of divisions, how many teams you have in there in terms of having, I think, not only the best competition as you get deep, but also avoid. And I bet you if you guys look at the scores for this weekend's Friday night's games, you're going to see a lot of scores in the 50-0 range, and that's not good for anybody.
No, that isn't good. In fact, if you got a problem with that, you can call us, drop a message in our mailbag, 608-557-8577. I got to imagine lots of people have thoughts about particularly Friday night football, what's going on, who makes the playoffs, who doesn't make the playoffs, all of those things. Yeah, I had to take a little opportunity there and go, wait a minute, everybody's in for participation. No. Johnny Lupinacci, what's going on with you on Friday Night Lights, though, man?
Well, man, it's hockey season over here. Well, it's hockey season everywhere, but college hockey season is full swing, and Fridays and Saturdays are game nights all around the country. And so, of course, we've got a hometown rivalry happening here. So we're gearing up for our big first home opener on campus Friday night, and we've got the hockey season way far out from playoffs. So we're not even thinking about that yet. But, I'm also tapped into all the Friday nights. I got a lot of students, right? We teach teachers. A lot of my students become coaches. Go figure, right? We have the whole program here where we do, coaching and teaching together in a master's degree. So a lot of coaches out there chatting with me this week about similar things that Chad's talking about. Hey, this is my first year playoffs, eight-person football. And that's really big around the country, especially in our rural communities. I'm learning more about it. Chad, for our listeners, can you give us a quick rundown of like, they might be like, what is this 8-person football thing that you're talking about?
It really is not as different as one would think. I remember actually it's been about a decade or so since 8-player football began. I remember watching though, because we used to have what was called a jamboree for 8-player football, and it was held right here in central Wisconsin, right basically about 3 minutes away from where I live. So I would go over there and take a look and see what it looked like. And back at the beginning, it used to be where you'd hand the fastest player the football, and he'd get to the corner and go all the way. But the game has really developed over the years, and you're seeing actually some programs that had solid 11-player programs, but just the numbers. And I'm sure you guys have talked about it plenty in terms of enrollment numbers generally. And that trickles down to athletics. When you don't have as many kids that are involved in the school, that means you have to get a higher percentage, in this case, of the boys to go out and play football. But over the years, the 8-player game, the basic difference is, in a lot of ways, when the 11-player, you'll have the center, the guards, and the tackles. In the 8-player football, you have the center and then the guards, and then who the tackles would be if you want to have a tight end. That would be sort of the tight end. And so basically, you lose two of the positions there, and then you decide, do you want to have a tight end and a couple of receivers or along those lines? And the receivers are basically down one, or the backfield as well. But in the end, as you look at the games now, a lot of the same philosophy. I just think it's a lot harder to slow down. You see a lot of man-to-man defense, so the offenses, I think, have a bit of an advantage there. But also, again, I've noticed in terms of 8-player that you do have, I think, lesser injuries. I just think that having the space a little bit tighter, having fewer players on the field, and normally not as big of players, you do see some of the injury factor go down as well. So I actually have enjoyed watching 8-player football. In fact, I think if you look at this week, where 8-player has only 16 teams in the playoffs. So they actually run a week less, and they have their first round playoff games this week as well. I actually think they're going to have a lot more competitive football games on Friday night in the 8-player realm than in a lot of the 11-player realm, where I think some of the top teams are going to have an easier time against a lot of the lower seeded teams.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Tim and our eyebrows are going up if you're following, if you go back and check this on the YouTube. But, Chad, we're going to be checking back in with you too about this, because 8-player football is unique.
Yeah.
A lot of our teachers out there who are also coaches are becoming, coaches of 8-player, big fans of it as well. So we're going to keep up with this, because I love that. You're telling us like there's going to be some good parity in those 16 teams. And I'll tell you what, Chad, the practices I've been to for 8-player football, having coached, your traditional large football programs, I will tell you, these kids are in shape. They are working hard, man. They really have to move. I mean, like in football, you got to be in shape, but come on, you can cheat that a little bit on the line and different things, and it looks different. But wow, 8-player football, they are just flying all over the place nonstop. Those guys are in really great shape.
Real fast. People who say it's not football or not the same game, it is.
It is
game. It really is. The same skills are involved, the same amount of teamwork, the same need for game planning and executing. It is all there. And you're so right about the teachers involved in it. And something that I want to point out when you look at these coaches and going to high school events generally, just how much these teachers work, not just the coaching, but I was doing a volleyball game last week, and there were teachers out there serving as linesmen, serving as scorekeepers, serving in so many different ways. The amount of work, and they love doing it. They love being part of it. At the same time, they are always asked to do it. They do it, and the support that they give to the student athletes is truly amazing.
All right, so I got a question. I got to imagine somebody's thinking this though too, and right out there listening, if I have an 8-player team, I'm going to make an assumption that 8-player teams are in their own divisions and that 11-player teams are in their divisions. So tomorrow or tonight, there's not going to be an 8-player team show up in an 11 player, or because I was just wondering, like thinking, and if I would end up playing in an 8-player team, do I have to be ready to substitute 3 people out? How's that work, Chad? Thinking about that, right? I mean, because I could see somebody going, it's like, okay, you know what, we're going to play Bull Falls, and they only have 8 kids, so 3 of you are going to sit the bench tonight. It doesn't work like that.
No, it is truly an 8-player division, and then they have the 11-player division, so you never have any crossover with it. And again, it really is. I mean, I look at some of the top teams in 8-player football. The thing about it is, during the 11-player season we just wrapped up, there was a team here in Central Wisconsin that I heard a story where they had 14 players because they had some injuries and they had some issues
Wow.
with
Total,
with
14
you
total.
can't play with 14. But
No.
if you have a lot of teams on the 8-player side who have 16, 17, 18, 19. You get into the teens, it's hard to be 11-player. But if you have if you want to have a football team and you have anywhere upwards of close to 20, you still want to have up to 20. But you're right, there are separate divisions, and but it's actually funny. 2 years ago, there was a school here in Central Wisconsin that started practice, and they realized we don't have the kids right now. What they ended up doing is, because it was so late, they basically, all the schedules are made up. Sometimes, though, there are issues of teams that may have injuries, forfeiting, or just issues in terms of having being able to play all the games. So this team actually made a season where they played some 11-player and some 8-player.
Okay.
I've never seen it like that ever since then, or before or since, but it was crazy. I don't know how you do it, because again, there's different rules as well.
Quite another question though, too. I'm just thinking about this. So I'm a college recruiter. Does this disadvantage students on an 8-player team? Is there a transitional change from going back to 11 players to play in college? I mean, I'm going to be the person here who goes like, up until we knew that we were going to have you on the show, Chad, I had not heard of 8-player football, and so this whole idea, it's interesting, and I got to imagine people listening to the show are also there's a lot of people out there like me going, wait, what? And so even thinking about that, so I'm a kid and I'm playing on an 8-player team and I'm awesome. Am I getting the same looks from colleges as kids playing on 11-player teams?
Yes, I
Okay.
believe so. Yes and no, actually. I think it depends a little bit on position. I think if you're a lineman, it may be a little bit different with the 8-player. But if you're a skill player, if you're a quarterback, if you're a running back, if you're a defensive back, even a linebacker, wide receiver, back about 20 years ago, and I wish I had the name in front of me, but a winner of the Heisman Trophy played 8-player in high school, and then went to Colorado and ultimately won the Heisman Trophy back in the early part of the century. So the theory is, there's so much competition in big time college football this time, this era, and even Division III here at the WIAC in Wisconsin. These guys will look under every rock, and if you have the
Yes,
talent, they will find
right.
you. So I think that the talent always does rise up, and nowadays they look for that talent everywhere.
Well, I mean, Johnny, you're looking at me like, Slacker, what the heck's wrong with you? I'm just making these comments because I could also imagine the parent potentially, like, so what you said, Chad. So last year we were an 11-player team. We find out that we don't have enough and that the school is going to drop down to an 8-player team. And I can imagine a parent going, but Johnny Lupinacci, my boy who's going to be quarterback, wait a minute, you guys can't drop to 8 because he's not going to get the same looks as he would have if he was playing 11-player football. That, Johnny, that's all I'm talking about.
Yeah, man, I hear that, and that's also a big thing when we're talking about choosing schools and where you go to school and having quality programs. And Chad alluded to this. If you're a skilled player and you're a coach out there with, 8-player team, you're working on those skills that quarterback, like you used, for example, it needs in order to be competitive at both 8 and 11. There is a lot of things that recruiters and coaches at the college level are looking for that they can see in a young player who stays healthy, who has a high IQ in the sport, has good grades, and has really good coachability and discipline. Those things, along with those skills, are going to make a huge difference. So I would say it's less likely to be a deal breaker for those kids, whether they play 8 or 11 at those high skill positions. And I want to say, when we say high skill, I don't want to take away. I know there's so much skill at the line in all the positions. So So coaches and players out there, just remember, we recognize you. We're just trying to make an example here of, say, for example, that quarterback or that wide receiver. There are so many stories out there of folks who just work hard, who keep their grades up, who stay healthy, who have a high sport IQ, right? And they're going to go places. They're going to go far in this stuff.
And one thing that Tim said is absolutely true, though. There are certain programs that I think should be playing 8-player, but they're still 11-player despite the lack of numbers because there are parents. There's just a sense within that community that real football is 11-player football.
Yep.
That is a discussion, and the most successful 8-player teams do have, I think, the buy-in.
Okay. See, and that, there you go. So that's the ability, because it's a cultural shift.
Yes.
To 1 year being 11-player, and then it's like the whole idea. And this happens in public schools all the time, right? It's that shrinking down and recognizing those numbers. And you typically will hear this in school districts too. It's like, there aren't enough students here. We need to merge school districts to make this to make it floatable. And people are like, well, wait, who are we then? We're not who we used to be, So in Friday night football, we were an 11-player team. I could see parents and even kids and a culture of generations of people going, wait a minute, this changes who we are then to drop to an 8-player team. But I appreciate the conversation here of saying, like, but it doesn't mean that. In fact, it could mean, and really healthy to actually look at this, because if you have a team of, let's say, only 14, the reality of staying at 11 players, man, that's, talk about really putting those kids at risk and constantly going back and forth. Is that what you're kind of talking about, Chad?
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many layers to it, and when you have few numbers, then you're forced to play two-way. And I talked to a coach just last week, and he has a couple of two-way players on the team, and he says, "Well, I want to make sure that they don't play 2 full games, and that means a full game on offense and a full game on defense. He wants them to play no more than a game and a half." And in a sense, these are the best players, and sometimes they are able to do that. But in a situation where you have to do it, all of a sudden you lose one player. That's losing 2 players, because you're losing an offensive player and a defensive player. I mean, and then of course there's the cultural aspect. You have to really have deep discussions about this when you have that decision point.
Johnny, this is something you actually have familiarity with. I can tell that right there. And I'm kind of the person coming into this going, wow, this is something I just didn't know was actually happening.
Yeah, absolutely. And mostly through the students that I've had that have become high school teachers and coaches and volunteered or refs out there and, around the country. And they write back and they say, hey, we got this really cool thing going on. Come check it out. And I've been able to check it out and see that, exactly like Chad said. Wow. When I first thought about it, I thought, oh no, what a devastating thing for those communities and those players. When now I was surprised, I was like, wow, this is great. This is actually giving life to programs that were right on the edge and just not able to be competitive, safe, and have that parity in kind of community building fun around a solid football program, because it does take a lot to run football in the 8-player.
You're listening to Civic Media. Stay up to date on the latest news and information for your local community and Wisconsin by signing up for our free email newsletter. Visit civicmedia.us/email to get started.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction. K5 Construction, a family-owned and operated custom builder in central Wisconsin that stands out from the rest for its commitment to quality and excellence. From design and planning to the final construction, K5 Construction delivers superior results on every project. And again, if you miss any of that conversation or any of our first hour along with the second hour, we do always post our episodes as a podcast. You can go to WXCO.FM and then go to the shows page and then go to the Big High School Sports Show. We get all of our previous episodes are there. And you can also subscribe by going to all the podcast hosts, whether it's Spotify, Amazon, Google Podcasts. Just subscribe to the Big High School Sports Show. With Jason Foster, I'm Chad Holmes, and very happy to welcome our student-athlete guest for this week from Wausau East High School, Senior Jesse Nepgezik. Jesse, thank you for coming back on the program.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely, and obviously you're very busy during the high school sports seasons. You on the basketball team, which is getting ready, but just wrapped up a very impressive football season for you and your teammates. Before we talk about the season itself, let's talk about Friday's playoff game. Obviously, it was big for Wausau East. First time East has hosted a playoff game in 17 years, and what happened early?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you look up there and it's the second quarter. It's 23-0 before your team came roaring back. But was it a night where it was a little maybe difficult to get the footing early in terms of a lot going on around with a playoff game at home?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, like you said, we haven't been in the playoffs or in that situation at all in 12 years. So it was all new to us, new to the coaches. So, yeah, we got down early, 0-20, and I think it was in the first quarter. But, I mean, great group of guys. We have a lot of perseverance, so we just fought back and made it a close game in the end.
What was the change? What was the catalyst that got you guys from probably being a little shell-shocked, down 23-0, to getting back into it? Was it kind of player-led? Did Coach kind of bring everyone together and give a Newt Rockney speech, or or did something just click, big play? What happened? What was the change?
Yeah, so we just got punched early, like I said. I think we just were caught off guard. We weren't ready to play right away, but I remember we had a timeout, or maybe it was the end of the first quarter. Our defensive coordinator, Coach Jong, said, we gotta wake up, we gotta fight back, and then we had a kick return touchdown, and then I think they scored, but we had some forced fumbles like back to back, and then scored right away. And before you knew it, was like 27-30 going into half, and then it was just a dogfight from there. Second half was a crazy game.
When it all wrapped up, and obviously you look at the scoreboard, 44-41. I mean, just an amazing game. What was the feeling? Was it like, how do you look at it? Because obviously there's so much good for the season, but then it comes to an end very, very quickly. What was the feeling for you and your teammates after that one was all wrapped up? Obviously a roller coaster of a night, and in some cases a roller coaster of a season, and a roller coaster of East football for the last number of years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It was just I think we just looked at it as a bitter loss for the most part, but it stung at the end. Losing by 3, you can just think of if I did this differently, if we did this better, if we just converted here. But I'm happy with the season. I think everyone else is happy with the season. We had a great year, but yeah, I mean, we all do wish we could win that playoff game, go play Medford. But looking back at it now, I think it was just a really hard fought game, and all in all, it was a successful season.
What was it like for you guys this year? So coming into a new conference, like Chad had just mentioned, that it's been quite a ride over the last 4 years. You guys have been in a lot of different situations, and this season was kind of the culminating effort of that, right? Being in the GNC, being playoff eligible, and playing teams that you've never played before consistently in new rivalries. So what kind of was the players? Like, we've talked to Coach Kramer, and he's kind of talked to us about it. What was the players' mindset, and what were your expectations for this season with so much unknown and being in a brand new situation?
Yeah, so I don't think we had really high expectations. We knew that going in. I don't think other people did of us, just because we were in a new conference. Since I was a freshman, we've just been changing everything around from 8-man to just a JV team, and then we had a normal year my junior year in the Wisconsin Valley, and then we got switched around. I knew personally that my senior year was the time we gotta like this was the season. So just looking at it from a player standpoint, everyone was super excited to go into the year. We knew we had high goals of maybe winning conference and making playoffs and everything. So we didn't win conference, we got second, but still a really, really fun year.
What was the highlight? Because there were a lot of highlights, obviously, this season. I imagine that, making the playoffs, clinching the playoffs, having big games that had so much on the line. Was there a particular highlight for this season for yourself?
I would definitely say the Mosney game. That Mosney game was super fun. A really, really close game, intense game, and in the end, that's what clinched us to get second in the conference, since Mosney finished third. And we won head-to-head, but that game was a lot of fun. Came down to a 2-point conversion in the end, and we won 21-20 or 2019.
I think that that's kind of what we've talked about with some different guests and coaches in the year, with kind of the changes with Tomahawk being new and you guys being new to the conferences. And kind of you guys kind of have a foot in each conference right now, football in the Great Northern, and now when basketball starts, you'll be back in the Wisconsin Valley Conference. So you've been there your whole career, so you've established rivalries and guys you like competing against and schools you like competing against. Who do you kind of mentioned Mosinee, so maybe that's the answer. Like who do you look at as being your rivalry in football now? What is the game that you guys most look forward to? I know when Treve Stoffel was here, we asked him, and he didn't hesitate for a second. He said Wausau East, and I think he might have even mentioned you by name. They like competing against you in multiple sports. What's your take on that?
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely say Mosinee in football, but I also really interesting like the comparison with Merrill. You know, we've played Merrill in basketball now because they're in the Valley, and then play them in football, and that's always a good game. So I would definitely say Mosinee, but then Merrill's a close second.
It's fun where both the games that you name, the teams that you named, were both went right down to the wire.
Yeah.
And obviously that Merrill game winning on a last-second field goal was probably as exciting as well on homecoming. It was that kind of season. And, again, it was really a very interesting campaign. We'll talk more about your high school sports here in just a moment, but let's talk a little bit about off the court. At East, what's your favorite class?
I would say probably Calculus 1.
Is there a reason why that's your favorite class?
I just like to be challenged in the classroom. I take academics very seriously, so I'm struggling a little bit, I'll say that. So just all new stuff in calculus, but got a great teacher, Miss Schuster. I don't know if she'll be watching this, but shout out her.
That's great. I know you're very busy with all of your sports and off-season stuff. What do you when you do have a minute away from the field or the court, what do you like to do in your free time?
Yeah, I love hanging out with my friends, spending time with family. I have two great dogs that I like to pay attention to a lot, but I would say hanging out with friends is probably the main thing I do.
Do you hope to continue both academically and athletically at the college level?
Yep.
Have you made a decision yet, or is it something that you're still working on?
I'm still working on it. I'm getting close, but it's down to a couple schools.
Are you hoping to continue to play sports?
I am, yes.
Is it what sport are you looking to continue?
Well, actually, I'm opening my recruiting to both basketball and football, so I'll be, open to whoever's open to me. But yeah, I haven't decided yet.
As you, and we'll talk more about basketball in a minute as well, but as you head into basketball season, what is the mindset change for you? Like, how do you prepare for a football week I love football. I like all the sports, but I love football. I love the routine of it, right? It's you play on Friday night. This is what you recover on Saturday. Saturday or Sunday you start watching film. Monday you kind of review Friday and game plan for the next Friday, and then this is what you do every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday you play again, and it's just repeat that until the playoffs are done, and then you move to your next season. But basketball is different, right? You play multiple games a week, and that's so. What do you have to change now from a mindset and physically as you head into that season versus football?
Yeah, so I think the most important part is to realize this is my last year of high school basketball. So, just a different chip on my shoulder. I think our goal this year or this winter is just to outwork everyone. Whether that be at practice or in games or even in the classroom, but. We got a lot of talent coming back, and I'm super excited for this winter.
Again, we're talking to Jesse Napgazdik from Wausau East High School, our student-athlete guest this week on the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO. Are you able to carry momentum from football into basketball? Like, you had a really good finish to your season, obviously. You had a big night in the playoff game, had a lot of success during the course of the football season. Are you able to carry it onto the basketball court in the winter?
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping to do. Just got to keep working, got to keep my nose down, stay disciplined. But, I think it'll be a little bit different than football. We have bigger goals, so, just keep working.
Can I one more quick question here? The mentality, kind of building on what you were asking, Coach, about the pattern of football. You have the one game a week, and then with basketball, it does change a lot. How about your personal mentality? Is there a difference? Do you feel a difference say, in the middle of a football game than you do in the middle of a basketball game. I just wonder, as somebody that plays at a high level, both in football and basketball, what's the mentality differences between football and basketball?
I think basketball, I would say, is more of a grind while you're in the game just because there's less breaks, I guess. So football, you go all in for 10 seconds or however long the snap is, and then you get a little break. But basketball, I mean, it's continuous going nonstop. You got to give it your all, all time, the whole time, I guess just the whole game.
Right.
So, yeah.
So one of the things that I noticed is, and have talked to him about, is that Coach Garrett is a member of the football staff as well. What does Coach Garrett bring to football, being your head basketball coach? And then how do you think that helps him coach you guys in basketball, having then just gotten done competing with you guys in football and being around you every single day? Do you think that's a benefit, and how do you think that helps out?
Yeah, for sure. I think he just keeps building his bonds with his players. He's actually in a similar situation with our head football coach, Coach Kramer, who's now coaching basketball. And it's interesting because, not to down these guys, but Coach Garrett is just not like a primary football guy, but he brings the coaching aspect just from being a head coach and all his experience. And then Coach Kramer's doing the same thing in basketball, just, his coaching experience and his discipline and his bond with the guys. Just, I think it's great that they're both coaching both sports, so you can just keep building your bonds with them.
It's not all about X's and O's with coaches, is it? As well, over the years as well. Let's talk a little bit about, you said it, expectations are very high this year. I mean, you got a group that has built together since very young players, and you've gone basically through some growing pains and then through some major success. What are you looking at this year? What are the goals that you have maybe personally and for your team on the hardwood this year?
Yeah, so I'm just going to be completely honest. We have really, really high goals. I mean, a lot of people look at last year's winter as a success. I do too, but we have bigger goals than that. Just a regional championship. We want to go to state. We want to win conference. We got huge goals, and it's up to us, to make sure that we can put the work in to get there. But also personal goals, I don't know. I haven't really thought of that. I'm just I'm looking to go to state and win conference.
Nothing wrong with that, right?
Absolutely.
Coaches like hearing that.
Absolutely.
When you look at the conference, who do you expect to battle? Who are the teams that right now that you expect to be at or near the top in the Wisconsin Valley Conference?
Yeah, so Spash, they just got Jaden Awe back, so they're going to be tough. Marshfield, obviously, three-peated. I think that's going to be our most important games, Spash and Marshfield. And personally, in my varsity career, we haven't beat Marshfield, so that's a really important game to me. So be focusing on that the most, probably.
You had a real one of those classic games against Marshfield last year, didn't you?
Yep.
Didn't quite, but I mean, it was those experiences. I mean, again, like you talked about the games like you had this season on the football field, and you think back to those kind of games as well. Not to put words in your mouth, but you've been very fortunate to play in a lot of very significant, emotional, high-intensity games, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Are you? Oh, sorry.
I was just saying, you mentioned some of those other players by names from those teams. Are those guys that you compete against in the summer or on some of the other teams that you play on? Like, do you have pretty strong relationships with those guys?
Yeah, I would say not much with Marshfield or Spash. I know Grant Shadana a little bit. But West guys and some Everest guys, a lot of them I play AAU with, so those are really, really strong friendships I have, which makes those games a little bit better. But yeah, I mean competing, I haven't really played many like conference players in AAU just off the top of my head. But in summer league and stuff too, so you just kind of see them in football and stuff too. So,
are you involved at all in spring sports?
I might be doing track this year. I was doing track last year, so yeah.
What event were you involved with and maybe involved with again this year?
I was in high jump.
Interesting. Cool. Anything else, Coach, before we wrap it up?
No, just congratulations on a great season. I think you guys had some really nice wins. Home playoff game, I think, was a huge step for your program, and excited to see how things go this winter. Good luck.
Mm-hmm. Yep, thank you.
And we have one final question. We always ask our student-athlete guests. You're familiar with it, obviously, and you got a little bit more experience now than you did when you came in last winter. based on your experiences, based on, again, the ups and the downs, based on the learning, based on everything you found out over these years being involved in the Wausau East athletic programs that you've been very much an important cog in. What piece of advice do you give somebody that may be a younger member of your teams that's just starting the journey that you are getting closer and closer to finishing off? Based on what you've learned, what piece of advice would you give to one of those younger teammates?
I mean, it sounds simple, but I just say just have fun. You know, you got to love your teammates. You got to love what you're doing. I mean, sports obviously aren't fun if you don't love your team, you don't love the sport. So, I mean, I just say you got to enjoy those times, and you got to build relationships.
Jesse Naptagesic, thank you very much. Congrats on the terrific football season. Best of luck as we get towards the winter sports. And again, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, thank you.
Again, that's Jesse Naptagesic from Wausau East. We're going to take a quick timeout and come right back. Again, the Big High School Sports Show presented by K5 Construction, a family-owned and operated custom builder in central Wisconsin that stands out from the rest for its commitment to quality and excellence from design and planning to the final construction. K5 Construction delivers superior results on every project. More to come here on 98.9 WXCO.
Local radio thrives when it serves the community. WXCO is no different, and we're looking to add someone to our staff that is well connected around town. Someone who can help our local businesses increase traffic and their visibility among our audience. From connecting clients with high school sports, local news and weather, or the Chad Holmes Show. If you know local business owners, we'd like to get to know you. If you'd like to know more about this opportunity, send me, Chad Holmes, a message at chad.holmes@civicmedia.us. That's chad.holmes@civicmedia.us. And let's set up a time to talk. Big High School Sports Show, presented by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO. Online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. I'm Chad Holmes. Again, a special program tonight as I am actually away. This is a pre-recorded program. We're bringing back some of our student-athlete guests from this season. And next week, the start of the winter high school sports play-by-play schedule. We are so very proud as we keep telling you that WXCO is the only Wausau radio station that still provides play-by-play of high school sports. And we will be with the Marathon girls basketball team to tip off our winter sports coverage on Tuesday of next week. Marathon at Loyal. Then on Thursday of next week, Newman Catholic hosting Assumption. And on Friday, Wausau West versus Neenah as we get the girls high school basketball part of our schedule underway next week. That'll be followed the following week by our first Central Wisconsin Storm girls hockey matchup. The Storm at Wisconsin Valley Union coming up Thanksgiving week on Tuesday. And then right after Thanksgiving weekend, we'll have our first two Wausau West high school hockey matchups as they participate in the annual tournament in Eau Claire to start off the season. Notre Dame Academy, Superior, and Eau Claire Memorial, along with Wausau West. The Warriors on Friday after Thanksgiving will be taking on Eau Claire Memorial in the semifinals of that tournament. Then we'll have Wausau West hockey early on Saturday in the second round, either the championship round or the consolation round. And then Saturday night after Thanksgiving, our first high school boys basketball broadcast will feature Wausau West and Newman Catholic at the Wausau West Turkey Shoot. So this is the opportunity for me to get away, taking some days off this week to get ready for the big push throughout the course of the winter sports months. And we're looking forward again to bringing you plenty of high school sports action featuring Newman Catholic, Wausau West, and Marathon High School sports during the winter here on 98.9 WXCO. But to continue to bring back some of our student-athlete guests, last month we had an opportunity to be joined by Newman Catholic High School outstanding lineman Carson Callow. And here's Carson Callow as he talked to Jason Foster and myself back in October. Carson, number one, thanks for coming on over.
Thanks, Chad.
Absolutely. And coach has been saying we needed more linemen this year, so we're bringing in the linemen. And I guess to start things off, you were, and frankly, I don't like scars. Right? You were showing us your scar on your arm because you broke your arm last year. You had a bit of an ankle injury last week in the game at Port, a big win for your team. Talk about injuries, because your team, that's sort of been a constant storyline this year, but you've been able to, go through some injuries and then come back. as a high school athlete, to be able to come back from injuries, I imagine those are lessons that are more than athletic lessons, but they're life lessons, right? To suffer a significant arm injury in that game against Tri-County last year, much less severe this year. But talk about coming back from injury, because that's something that I think a lot of people don't really think about, because football players go through a lot.
Yeah, it's I don't know, it's kind of weird because most people, like, you'll get hurt one game. Well, everybody gets a little banged up in football. It's a pretty hard sport.
Stay close to the mic.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, it's a hard sport. So, I don't know. It's just everybody plays a little sore kind of every game. And everyone's got, like, that one injury that, like, you twisted your ankle, like, in 8th grade, and you always just kind of feel it. But coming back from my arm, I didn't even really, like, realize it. Like, it didn't hit me until, like, 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, I broke my arm last year, and I'm, like, back over here. And I don't know, a lot of people got a bunch of injuries that they just came back, and it just shows how tough you can really be. That really reveals some character there.
First off, I like your scar. I like that, and that's one of the reasons I like linemen, because linemen have cool scars, and usually those pretty guys don't. Quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, no. But how has your experience of getting injured, a major injury, and kind of battling back from that, has that allowed you to be a better leader this year as you guys have experienced so many injuries as a team?
Yeah, I feel like it's a big point, because I don't really bring it up much about my arm, but it's just kind of like, if you can't go full speed right now, like, I'll look at some of these guys who have never gotten hurt before. Like, if you can't go full speed right now, you don't, like, really appreciate it, because that, like, your season could be done at any moment. Quincy, the first game of this year, he didn't think that he was going to be out for the rest of the season. That was big. He only played a half. And, like, that's happened to a lot of our guys where they're just out.
And getting younger kids probably in particular to understand too. And you guys have had serious injuries, so serious injury is a serious injury. But football is a game where there's going to be some aches and pains, right? Just from the normal course of practicing every day, and your body getting worn down, and especially you linemen are in the trenches, right? Lots of one-on-one drills and a lot of big bodies moving each other around in there. So part of it. Is it getting guys to understand the difference between pain and injury and being able to play through some things?
Yeah, like I said earlier, you're going to get banged up, so you got to just learn how to work through it. And then when you get home, ice it, maybe take some ibuprofen the next day at practice. But just taking care of yourself is a really big thing, especially in the trenches.
5-1 so far this season, and as you said, you lost Quincy Fender right away, and then they just kept on coming. And you're on your fourth quarterback this season, and there's been injuries outside the quarterback position as well, because I think one of the things that maybe people don't realize is for a school the size of Newman Catholic, when somebody goes down, it's basically two guys going down, because of most, like yourself, two-way players. What has been the within the locker room for you and your teammates that's allowed you to continue to focus on getting the job done each week, to give yourself an opportunity, if you're able to keep on winning, to make another playoff berth? What was the discussions like when these injuries started early this season, and what has allowed this team to stay together to be successful up to this point?
Yeah, well, those first two games we had, obviously Quincy's ankle, and then Tristan Fisher broke his collarbone, 5 concussions. It was more of just because those first two teams, Phillips and Alma Bancroft, they're pretty physical teams. So at halftime, we're just like, play for each other, finish your blocks, keep your head on a swivel, just make sure that you're there for each other, because these guys are going to be coming real fast.
One of the things we talk about all the time with 8-man football, and we joke around a lot this year about having linemen on, and knock on wood, your linemen have been pretty healthy this year. Chad just asked our coach guest from Spash to talk about the team and the players and how they're so effective in their passing game. And when you talk pass or short passing game, when you talk that, everyone automatically thinks quarterback, receiver, running back. But what really makes those things tick is the linemen. He said they have 3 all-conference linemen back. So when you look at the success you guys have been able to have, part of it's being healthy on the line this year, but a lot of times when you hear 8-man football, you think big passing yards, big running yards, high scores, lots of touchdowns. What is the significance and the importance of the role of linemen in 8-man football?
Well, I mean, obviously we lose some width in the field, and there's a lot that we need to really pick up. Like usually in 8-man, it's just a 3-man line, and then sometimes the defense will run a 4-man. You really gotta just pay attention and make sure you know what to do on how to block to make sure that everybody's safe, and then make sure we have the call outs from our running back and our quarterback so everybody knows what's going on. We really got to be really smart.
So is there a lot, and I don't think parents sitting in the stands necessarily, they don't hear it, but I don't know how much they understand it too. There's a lot of communication that happens before the ball is snapped on just about every play, right? Can you talk about that a little bit? Like between the linemen, you said running backs, quarterbacks. What types of things are you guys talking about out there?
Right, so we'll be listening to the play, and then we'll hear if it's a pass or a run, and then we'll see where it's going. Depending on what kind of line they have out there, we'll call if we're going to the right or if we're going to the left, who we're leaving, who's going to get a blitzer, especially call out who we have, and see if the running back is staying to block, just making sure that everyone is accounted for so we can mainly get to a one-on-one between the ball carrier and the defender.
We're talking to Carson Callow from Newman Catholic High School here on the Big High School Sports Show, brought to you by K5 Construction on 98.9 WXCO. So often we talk about having experience, being able to help an individual player. You, as part of that line, is an experienced line. You've got guys you've played with for multiple years now. Number one, talk about your line mates. And number two, talk about having a line that's back together as a whole, how much of an advantage that is that you guys have played together quite a bit. How much of an advantage is it to have not just you having experience, but having the guys around you have experience as well?
Yeah, so I play center, and then on my right we've got Greg Zabrowski, and on my left we got Evan Graney. I mean, those guys, I've been playing, those guys, the two of them have been on this line with me ever since we were in middle school. I mean, we've always been there for each other, and somebody goes down, we make sure we know exactly what to say to each other to get each other fired up, make sure we're okay. And, I mean, it's just that little bit of chemistry, and really with the whole team, but especially with the linemen, that is just so important on, just to win.
What about playing on the defensive side of the football? You said the center on the offense side, but you're also on the defensive side of the football. Just, you're as big of a factor, I think, on both sides of the ball. Talk a little bit about the defense, because I thought last week in that game against Port, the defense was outstanding. I mean, going into that game, you looked at some of the numbers that Port had put up, big plays on offense, and be able to throw the ball and run the ball. You shut them out in the first half, and then were able to hold on in the second half. I mean, I think it was a case where it's hard to keep a team like that down for 4 complete quarters. What was the key on the defensive side of the football last week in that game against Port?
It was just really big, making sure everybody's got their keys, going to the right gaps, and just honestly just making sure that you're ready for the ball. Like we said, my ankle. I didn't play defense the second quarter, but Greg came in and played end for me, and he did just as well. He knew exactly where to go. He was studying his playbook all week, and it's just really good that we all know that we got to just be ready to go in at any point.
I was talking to actually the coach of Port Edwards a few weeks ago, and they had switched from 11-man to 8-man, and he was telling me one of the biggest challenges that they have that he's found doing it differently is on the defensive side of the ball, because the offenses can be so dynamic and do things so differently from week to week. When you think about playing both ways from week to week, what is more of a challenge week in and week out, preparing offensively or preparing defensively for the game?
I would say probably preparing defensively, because, I mean, really, you can really cram it up the middle any way you want, because you can bring up a running back and block and have a wide open hole. If you have an all right defense, it's really hard to be able to stop people, because it's just, it can either go really well for your defense or really bad, because they could just easily kick it out to the outside and then have a big gain because, I don't know, someone gave up.
We'll talk more about football in just a few minutes, but let's step away from the gridiron a little bit. Are you involved in any other sports?
Yeah, I throw shot and disc in the spring.
Could you compare football and track? Because they're obviously very different. I mean, it's you're still part of a team in track, but there's an individual aspect to that. How do you like that, having that individual portion that you can focus on?
Yeah, there's obviously a difference between a football game day and, on the bus for a track meet. I mean, the entire environment's different. It's way more social on track, but I feel like I'm a little more focused on football. And I don't know. Like
how's the coach different? Because you have the same coach.
The same coach, yeah. And this year we actually have the same line and throwing coach, so it's.
You said it's a little bit more. I don't get the sense that Michlig would ever be kind of laid back. The intensity would still be there.
Yeah, he's definitely still making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do.
So you spend a ton of time preparing offensively, defensively during football season. I know how busy you are, good student athlete. What do you do when you have a little free time? What do you like to do when football's not on your brain for a couple hours?
That doesn't really happen. Well, I usually lift, make sure that I'm keeping up with everything in school, and on the weekends I like to serve at Mass.
Nice.
Do you have a favorite class in school?
Oof, probably English class. I love my English class with Mr. Knoll.
Another coach on the Newman staff. Do you have any plans to continue to go to school after high school?
Yeah, I was thinking about maybe either general business management or like construction management at UW Stout, and I might be able to throw there.
Okay, I was going to ask you, not thinking about continuing on the football side, but track and field?
I would like to play football, but I'm 5'7", so I don't know how well I would do at lineman. So
coaches will always look for the right guys, no matter what the size, right? There,
absolutely. And 5'7", probably closer on defense than offense. But if you got a motor, shot or disc?
I prefer disc, but I find that usually I don't know. It's kind of a toss up. It goes from week to week.
Let's look ahead now to the last two games of the season, because something that people don't kind of realize with 8-player, because I posted something earlier in the week, and I said, well, we have 3 teams that we cover here, and I said all 3 of the teams need to win this week. And somebody said, well, hasn't Newman already qualified for the playoffs? Well, no, because there's nobody that does get automatic qualifying for the playoffs in 8-player football. You have to, every game counts, even the non-conference games count. To make the playoffs in 8-player football is not easy. There's 16 teams that get in, and it's getting tougher and tougher every year. What is the mindset going into these last 2 games? Is there more excitement? Is it just a building excitement? Is it the same as it's been throughout the season? What's the feeling here going into the last 2 weeks of the season?
I would say it's more excitement, basically, off of how many people we've lost this year and all the adversity that we've had to overcome, and it just feels good to get in the playoffs, obviously. And Newman's been in the playoffs every year since they joined 8-man, so it's just nice to carry on that legacy. And to get there, we got to win out, so get 7-1, and it's going to be hard.
Special week this week because it's homecoming, right?
Right.
And also senior day, is that correct?
Yeah, senior day.
How do you look at that being the last home game that you're going to play there?
It's so weird. I mean, it really feels like yesterday I was a little freshman first coming out on the field and not knowing really anything about the game of football.
What do you take away from being part of the program when it won those state championships?
I really enjoyed it, obviously, because I get a cool medal. And then, I don't know, I feel like it was a big part because it was obviously those guys, those starters who really made it happen. But I feel like it's also the scout team that was there, and I was obviously a part of that. It's just kind of special to be there.
How does that? I love that you say that, because you're right. There is no football without a good scout team, and when you have your banquet at the end of the year, and you talk about your most valuable players and all that. Sorry, excuse me. Those guys play a huge role. So knowing that you used to be on that scout team, what's your relationship like now, being the big man on campus or big man on the line for multiple years? What is your relationship with those scout team guys?
I mean, it's kind of tough this year because they haven't had any JV games, and a lot of these guys are brand new because there's only one sophomore, and he was hurt last year. So a lot of these guys, this is like their first time playing football, and they have no experience in game. So I really try not to be so hard on them, make sure they're going full speed, make sure I'm giving them a good look too, because they really need to step up next year.
What are the keys this week against Tri-County? You've obviously been preparing this week, looking at film, hearing the scouting report from the coaches. Do you have what are the big points of emphasis in order to be successful against a team that's only lost 1 game?
We really got to stay focused, especially with that being homecoming week. We got to just make sure that everybody's really just into the game and make sure they don't get outside.
Coach, anything else before we get to our final question?
No, it's been awesome to watch you guys this year. I know when Chad asks earlier, when the person or the community member asked, well, doesn't Newman Hardy have it clinched? I think you guys have created that, right? I mean, with the success you've had and the tradition in your program, and people just automatically assume that it's easy, and it comes that way every year. So you guys have faced a lot of adversity, so congratulations on getting this far, and good luck with these last 2 weeks.
And we got one final question here. We always ask our student-athlete guest, and especially a senior who's been around the block a couple of times and obviously with multiple sports. As you finish up your high school athletic career at the end of track this year, based on what you've learned, based around the people that you've been around for the last 4 years, for a younger person that is just joining the athletic program, whether in football or track and field at Newman Catholic, what piece of advice would you give? Something you've learned over these 4 years that you could hand over to a younger person that's just starting their journey, maybe that little piece that they should think about as they start that journey?
I don't know. I would just say probably just make sure that you do everything you're supposed to do the right thing, try and be a good player, but also maintain being a good person, and just have fun with it, ultimately. Just have some fun with it, because if you have fun, you'll probably be pretty good.
Carson Callor, student-athlete guest this week on the Big High School Sports Show. Again, brought to you by K5 Construction, a family-owned and operated custom builder in central Wisconsin that stands out from the rest for its commitment to quality and excellence. From design and planning to the final construction, K5 Construction delivers superior results on every project. Back with more coming up. Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO.
What does the 50th anniversary of Title IX mean? It means I'm valued, I'm empowered, I can do anything. It means I'll pave the way for every girl who plays high school sports in the future, just like every female student, coach, official, and administrator blazed the trail for me. Because every student deserves the opportunity to play. Encourage girls you know to participate in Wisconsin high school sports.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
So, how are the kids?
Well, Emily made the honor roll.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, we're really proud of her. Tyler, on the other hand, though.
What's going on?
He's been moody lately, just feeling down and not like himself.
Oh, we've been there. Nick was struggling last spring. He was so anxious and stressed.
Really? What helped?
Well, he joined the soccer team. And ever since, he's been a lot happier. He has more energy, he's less stressed, and he's definitely in a better mood at home. It's made a huge difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad he's getting out of the house, he's getting some exercise, and he's off his phone for once. It's been good for his mental health.
Sounds like it's been good for your mental health, too.
Participating in Wisconsin high school sports improves students' physical and mental health. Encourage your son or daughter to get involved. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's commercial printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services, whether you need vehicle graphics, offset, digital, large format, graphic design, or mailing. They print everything under the sun. No project is too big or too small, so give Sun Printing a call at 845-4911 or visit them online at sunprinting.com. Big High School Sports Show on 98.9 WXCO, online at WXCO.FM, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. I'm Chad Holmes again. This week, I'm on vacation. So the final opportunity for me to take a few days off prior to the start of the new winter sports season. And we have 3 games next week, starting on Tuesday night in high school girls basketball. So as we get very, very busy with girls and boys basketball and girls and boys hockey, decided to take a few days off. So what we're doing here this week is going back and listening into some of the best parts of the show, which are our student-athlete interviews. And one young man that came on board who is an outstanding performer this season for Merrill High School is E.J. Wykes. And we had a chance to talk to E.J. Wykes back in late September, and here was that conversation.
And now, as we always do at the start of the second hour, we have our student-athlete guest from Merrill High School senior E.J. Weixen. E.J., thanks for making the trek here to Wausau and coming here in studio. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. And I have to make a confession because we started off our season this year, and our first coach guest was Coach Jason Wadzinski of the Merrill Blue Jays. And my confession is when we bring in somebody the first week of the season, that means we want to get them on real early because we don't know, because we like to have kids and coaches come in after you win football games. I made a mistake. He could have come in almost any week here because your team has been doing such a great job so far this season. 3 wins and 2 losses so far. Only losses to a couple of powerhouses in your conference so far this year after last season, not winning a regular season game. And I asked you this when you came in, but I'm going to ask you again. What's been the difference so far this season for the Merrill Blue Jays? Because not only are you winning, but you're winning in very impressive fashion, going on the road, winning after long road trips, winning the 64, War on 64 against Antigo. What's been the difference so far this year?
I would say it's just a strong group of seniors who kind of have the same goal in mind and always lifting people up and just keeping a good culture, I would say, is the biggest thing. And the coaches have stayed positive through it all. I mean, obviously after last year, it's tough to come back and kind of have that same goal, but everyone's kind of had that in mind. So,
what types of things did you guys, and I know I asked Coach this when he was here, what types of things did you guys do in the off season? Like he kind of said last year that the springboard was that extra game you played. I think it was against East, and you guys had some success in that game, and he felt like that started the ball rolling. What was your off? Like I know what you guys have kind of done so far, which is great, and we can definitely see the turnaround. What was the off season like that laid the groundwork to this season?
Obviously, I mean, you got to have your off season lifting, but I mean, coaches are very nice about if you have a sport, your sport is your sport. You don't have to make sure you're getting in the weight room. Obviously, that's nice, but making sure once we get to the summer, you're in the weight room, and then if you can go along with your sport in the weight room, that's great. And I think our trainer, Dakota Rest, does a great job. He's provided in the mornings before school agility workouts. He's provided mobility things. I mean, he's just done a great job for our program overall.
When you look at the season so far, obviously you started off against Osceola. And frankly, and that was a little surprising. I mean, again, from the outside, because last season you had a rough go of it at home against Osceola. You went on the road, week number 1, and won by 20 points. What did you and your guys say in the locker room on the bus ride home after that one? What was the feeling like to start your season off in that way?
That one was a lot of fun. I mean, especially coming off of an 0-9 season, going into a game where the year before they beat us by, I think it was 41.
Yeah.
You go in there, you're like, okay, we're taking a 3-hour bus ride to Osceola. We're not really sure what to expect, but I knew we had a good team going in. We had a good chance to win. So
let me ask you then about week 2, because then you're home opener against Crandon, and you're down by 2 scores with about 5 or 6 minutes left in the game, and you're able to pull that one out. Obviously, it's a different kind of win coming from behind. I imagine that was just added to the confidence that your team had.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, it's nice to win by 20 points, but when you are able to come back there's probably not a very good chance that we're going to be able to come back and win that one and know that your team has some grit to come back and win. It's really nice to see.
And let me add finally the third win, and that was the win over in Antigo, 31-0 last Friday night. And I haven't been to Antigo in a while, but every time I went to Antigo, it's like going back into like the 1950s to play football, and it has that feel. And that's a wonderful feel, to be honest with you. It's really a traditional game and a rivalry game for you.
For sure.
To take that one 31-0, it's just after losing a couple against tough competition in the Great Northern, it had to be a big win in order to get that first conference win.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was kind of the one where it's like, it can kind of go either way with your season. I mean, because you don't want to lose that one, go 0-3 in the conference. You want to get that one out of your way and get that first win. So that was definitely a huge game for us.
Let's delve into the multi-sport aspect of it. Obviously, you play football. Is it basketball and baseball? I kind of know it because I've seen you around all these sports. Basketball and baseball in addition to football, correct?
Yep.
I'm going to ask that question that nobody really likes to answer because their coaches may be listening, but do you have a favorite of your 3 sports that you play?
I've been asked this many times in my life, and I kind of answer the same way and just say I like whatever one I'm in at the time.
That's a
your
great
coaches
answer.
love that answer.
Yep.
I'm sure you. In basketball, what position do you play?
I mean, I would say it's kind of our team's kind of positionless because I mean we're not a very big team, so I guess you could say I play center, but I mean I'm also bringing the ball up some of the time, so I mean it's kind of whatever I need to do.
And what about baseball?
Baseball, I play outfield, I pitch, and first base a little bit, but yeah. So.
And what is the advantages of I mean, I think at some schools it's more difficult to do it. At Merrill, is it made easier? Is that something that's encouraged by the folks in Merrill, the coaches and the athletic department as a whole?
I mean, yeah, I would say, I mean, obviously it's still declining in the 3-sport athletes just because of how much extra stuff you have to do in the summers. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I would say it's kind of the same all around, like for other schools too.
So I'd imagine that the 3 sports keep you very busy. When you do have some downtime, what do you like to do in your free time?
I mean, a lot of my free time, I just like to sit at home and do a little bit of nothing. But I mean, I like to go out and lift whenever I can. Obviously, because we have Riverside in Merrill, and that's kind of where I like to spend a lot of my time. But honestly, I don't really do much outside of sports.
That's exactly what I would say, except I would not say that I lift at all. I just do the sitting around when I'm not working. So that's even better. Do you have a favorite class?
Favorite class? We actually have it's called Unified PE, but it's PE with some of the special education students in our school, and that's a lot of fun.
Do you have any plans on going to college or maybe also being involved in sports in college as well?
That's definitely something I've thought a lot about, and it's still something I'm trying to continue to think, like which sport I might want to choose. I mean, I really like all of them, so it's definitely a tough choice, and even if I want to play sports. So, I mean, it's definitely something I'm still considering.
What do you want to pursue in school?
Mm-hmm. I've also thought a lot about that, and I think I'm kind of leaning towards physical therapy, which I'm kind of interested in that, and we have a really good we have a really good trainer at Merrill, so ask him and have a good resource for that too.
Going back to what Coach Foster was asking about, being in the GNC and the WVC in some sports, do you have a favorite rival? Is there a game that in one of your sports against a school that you really look forward to that maybe gets you going more than maybe a little of the others?
I mean, obviously, after this past week, Ihanigo is a good one, but I mean, it's hard with the Wisconsin Valley because we're kind of the little school in the big conference. So, I mean, I wouldn't say any of these schools look at us as a rival, but I mean, I don't know. East was a lot of fun to play last year. We played them 3 times. Unfortunately, lost all 3 of them, but those were always good games, and I enjoy playing them a lot.
And that is interesting as well from a conference standpoint because you'll be gone. But starting next fall, you will be in the Great Northern Conference for everything. What is the general mindset on that from like your classmates, your coaches, your teachers? Is there much buzz about that? Are people excited about it? Are there people who wish you weren't doing that? What is kind of the mindset?
I mean, I would say people are pretty excited that we're going to the GNC. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of great teams in the Wisconsin Valley, and that'll give us kind of a chance to really contend for a championship. But for me personally, I would say I really like being in the Valley because, I mean, there's a lot of good competition, especially this coming year. There's a lot of guys coming back that are really good athletes, and I enjoy playing against all those guys.
Let me ask you about baseball for a moment because I think that's probably the deepest run you've made in a postseason. Last year, you made it to the sectionals, had a really nice run. You had a couple of road wins, and then heartbreak with a walk-off home run that lost in the sectionals. What was that like where you have a bit of a postseason run? You got challenged, obviously, during the course of the regular season in the Wisconsin Valley Conference, and you played some really good competition there. Did that help you set up that run in the postseason?
Yeah, I would say for sure because, I mean, a lot of those teams, not discrediting any of them, but, I mean, I would say we definitely, out of our entire regional, we had the hardest regular season schedule. So, I mean, that definitely gave us an advantage going and seeing all these like great pitchers like Marshke, Langben, all those guys who are going to play Division I baseball, JUCO baseball, wherever they're going. So, yeah, it was definitely an advantage.
You guys also had a really nice regular season win against Mosinee last year, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yep.
What are the goals this year? Obviously, for football, basketball, and baseball, do you allow yourself to dream about those ultimate goals of going to a state in one of these sports, or do you have general ideas what you'd like to accomplish here in your final year of high school?
I mean, for football, definitely. Obviously, playoffs is on our mind for sure, and then getting a home game for playoffs would be huge, and then obviously winning a playoff game would be a really good goal. And then for basketball, I think we're definitely an underrated team going into this year. Obviously, we had a struggle season last year, but I think this year we have a really good chance to be a contender and play with any team we go against. So, and then for baseball, we lost a lot of seniors last year, but we definitely have a good core group that's going to stick it out and have a good solid team next year or this coming year.
Your conference is actually one of my favorite ones to look at the scores at the end of Friday night, because I think we all could agree that Medford kind of sits atop right now, but with East knocking off Mosinee last week, I kind of look at you guys, Lakeland, Rhinelander, Mosinee now, Wausau East. It's going to be really interesting as we go through these last 4 weeks to see these matchups and to see where the final standings and who gets those wins necessary to make the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if there's a team that hasn't beaten a team or beaten each other. I mean, it's been a really crazy year because, I mean, compared to last year, it was kind of Mosinee and Medford sitting at the top and everyone else kind of falling in line. But this year, I mean, it's obviously Medford's had a really good start to conference, but I mean, I think it's anyone's.
What are your, just real quick, what are your thoughts on, like, you guys lost Ashland and Hayward, so other than losing potentially two long bus rides, what do you guys think of the matchups with Wausau East and Tomahawk? Does that make the football conference better? Is that kind of a little more local, maybe a little more rivalry type stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, obviously, Hayward and Ashland, it's a 3-hour bus ride, so I mean, it's hard to kind of have that rivalry feel when it's such a long trip. But I mean, yeah, I think having Wausau East and Tomahawk is going to be a fun experience.
Anything else?
No, great job tonight. You guys having a great start to your season, and good luck this Friday with both homecoming and getting the big W.
But we do have one final question. We always have one question for our student athletes, especially seniors, and especially multi-sport athletes, because you've seen a lot. You've gone through the process, a number of different ways. If you were to give somebody that's just starting their high school athletic career, a freshman or a sophomore that's just coming through one of the programs that you're part of, what piece of advice would you give them based on what you've learned over the years? What piece of advice should they be thinking about as they start their journey that maybe they should think about because you've actually gone through it?
I mean, I would say don't take any opportunity for granted, because you think you have a lot of time and then you realize it's your senior year, you don't have that time to.
The national news cycle never stops, but it can be hard to find news about your local community. Civic Media is dedicated to providing quality local and state news coverage across Wisconsin. With the Civic Media app, you can get notifications about local stories that matter to you and your community. Find the free Civic Media app in your phone's app store and choose notifications from the menu to tell us what kind of news you want to hear about.